Arell. Has anyone met me before? Okay. Have you heard all my jokes? Dang it. So you in the back, don't give away the punchlines that as I go through them, please, because then it's just like, okay, there goes Ray with his one story again. I do have a lot of stories that I like to share. If you look at my background itself, if you give us a second here, there it goes. And my background, if you read this bag up in the corner, this is my coaching bag. And on my coaching bag, it says a couple different things that I find, when someone asks me, what does Agile mean to me? And I'll read them for the people at the back of the room. The number one thing, it says, ask the team. Go to the team and ask them about what they're doing. And me, as a former senior director at Intel, people who are working day to day in the trenches know a heck of a lot more about the delivery of the product than I do. So I need to trust and take my decisions to them in order to reflect them. Next one is inspect and adapt. Look at the situation and adapt based upon the data that's in front of us. Deliver every sprint, meaning I do not believe in scrum falls. I don't believe that we have a sprint, that we're going to be doing development, and a sprint we do test, and a sprint that is not Scrum. And so for me, delivery of what we do every sprint is very vital and important. The last thing up here is treat people like adults. Treat people in a way that you would want to be treated yourself. I think sometimes in the Agile community, and you're a Scrum Master, right? You can fall backwards at an Agile conference, and a Scrum Master will be the one who will actually save you, right? Because they're there all the places. In your belief of being a Scrum Master, is it telling the team or bringing things out of the team? Bringing things out. I can tell people all day about you should do it like X, and then I sound like my parents. That's not my goal. My goal is to treat people like adults. You can follow me on Twitter, and it's at Elmo Ray. And what you'll find up there is me poking the eye in the eyes of the community that we are in. Because sometimes we do some crazy stuff here in the Agile community. So I will sometimes post things that people go, why did you post that? It just happens to be that in my chain of thought, chain of consciousness, some of those things come out. The last personal note that I'll have with you, and I know the emergency number is wrong here. This is, has anyone known of anyone who had a stroke before? A brain clot stroke at all? Yeah, I had one about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. A clot after I did a whole bunch of air travel. My leg hurt, and I didn't know why my leg was hurting, and then this blood clot broke off and went to my brain. I could not move any side, my entire right side, and I got to the doctor within 45 minutes of the stroke onset. And I know here, it's very difficult to get to emergency services if you have one of these types of things. So it's important to understand if you have issues with balance, vision issues, arm issues, speech, call the local emergency number, which I think here is 101. Is that true? 112. 112. Don't dial 101, dial 112. And get help immediately, because that shot, that's my hand right there, that shot actually broke the blood clot up. I still have some problems, meaning my speech sounds different to me. You might not hear it, I hear it differently, and it's sometimes distracting, and sometimes I have a little stutter, and I apologize for that. But this is the more important message than myself on that one. So, congratulations. All of you have just been promoted to CEO of your companies. This is great, right? You didn't think that if you came to this conference that you would receive such a high honor to be that way. And I know your parents are going to be incredibly happy in your family. You're going to call them up and they're going to say, ooh, you reached that position, right? This is it. You hit it. You're at the top of the game. You're at the highest point. Except I work for the board of directors, and now you work for me. No. There's always somebody above, you know. That's the hard thing from it. But, okay, you're the CEO, and then your first day in the job, and you're in your beautiful office, your phone rings. Ring, 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 ring. And it's your customer. And your customer is like, hey, I have a deal for you. You're going to make $100,000 off this if you can provide me, ship 10 highly complex features in your product in the next 52 weeks. Now, think about the products that you work on today. Think about the level of complexity that you have today. Does this feel possible, new CEOs? 52 weeks from now, I could get 10 new features in and I get $100,000 from my customer?
5 weeks.
What's that?
5 weeks.
Well, hold on there, Mr. Aggressive, CEO guy. But show of hands up on the one people who think that this is possible within the scope of this. There's a few of you that are thinking, not a chance in hell, we haven't shipped a feature at all. I don't know, in 5 to 10 years. We're just working through the defects, or whatever it might be. Don't worry about that. I don't want you guys to feel bad if you can't do it within 52 weeks. The people, raise your hand if you can do it in 52 weeks. If you think, CEO, you can do it. Okay, can you do it in 10 weeks? Keep your hands up if you think you can, thinking about the complexity that you have. Ooh, hands went down. Ooh, there we go. Didn't you say 5?
I said I would demand 5.
You would demand 5.
As the CEO, right? You just made me the CEO.
I am walking around and I demand 5 weeks. Not 2, 5. What if they did it in 2? Would you get all mad at them? If they had accidental success?
Very impressed.
Accidental success does happen. Please mind the technical difficulties right now. I will now have to dance the rest of these slides in order to do this. So let's see. That's connected. That's why we have the extra buffering time called networking time after this. Ooh, click. What's happening? Scanning all sources. So, going down a little bit further than that, how about if we did it next week? Could we do that at all? Do you think that that's possible at all within the current complexity? How about tomorrow? Is it possible? Well, you just lost $100,000 for the company, CEO, and I'm going to hold you personally accountable for not being able, even though you demanded 5 weeks, I'm going to be the one who's going to come to you and say that, look, as a customer, I am now angry or I'm mad at you. Opportunities that we go off and try to do as an organization. Oh, how about next week? How about tomorrow? Oh, mad customer. Okay, I got that. I think I reviewed my slides beforehand. What we have in corporations today, which is kind of interesting, is we fall into, I think, a set cadence. Regardless if we do Scrum or Kanban, or even if we're waterfall, we end up having a certain time box that's realistic for things to get out the door. As an example, at Intel Corporation, it's 5 years to get a new CPU out the door. And the reason why it's 5 years is because we're not just building the CPU, we're also building the fabrication facility that will manufacture that part. So in order to get a new product out the door, it is literally from the first time concrete gets poured to the time that we actually get silicon out the door, it's that 5-year windows. And no matter how Moore's Law, and everyone knows what Moore's Law is, right? Yep. No matter how Moore's Law went, and we were adding, doubling and tripling transistor counts, it was always 5 years. It always set that way itself. And what happens is that I believe that The values, the environment, the vision, the resources, all of these things that make up not just your development side of your business, but the actual business side, the economic side. How many of you today are in technology delivery? How many of you are in finance or business side? Okay? Here's a problem one with business agility. You guys already get Agile. You guys have been doing it. Well, most of you have been getting it for a while. But what about finance? Shouldn't they get Agile too? My biggest impediment was not my development teams. My biggest impediment was my finance person. Because my finance person would say, that's not in the budget. We don't have the money for it. We don't have the resources. And by the way, resources are not people. People are not resources. I'm a human. Resources I'm referring to as other things besides humans. So, but all of that kind of wrappers in together. And what's interesting about this is that new opportunities come in and they bounce off. The organization has to say, no, I can't do it tomorrow. I can't do it in 10 weeks. I demanded 5, but I know it's going to take 30. And no, I'm going to have to turn down the deal. I won't be able to say that I can do this with 90% confidence level. We were talking about confidence level before some of you walked in, about how senior management always wants to tell you, what's your confidence level on this? It's not acceptable, right, to say, I have no clue, right? You make something up. Oh, it's 3 weeks. Is it really 3 weeks? I have no clue if it's 3 weeks. I told you 3 weeks. Hopefully you will go away. But, right? Do you guys ever make updates like that? Yeah. Okay, that worked. Whew. And then you go back to your desk and go, how the heck can I deliver it in 3 weeks? I know. We'll ship a beta in 3 weeks. But we didn't get the whole requirements down. Acceptation, by the way, is that depending on where you're at in your company, at the high point, Intel literally, like when you fall backwards and you get caught by a scrum master, Intel Corporation would fall backwards always into money. They were making lots and lots of money. So our success was always tempered by the fact that, oh, what we're doing today is okay because we're making a lot of money, even though there could be waste all over the place. So at times when everything is going at the high, and I actually left Intel 4 years ago, everything was like, yay, we're all happy. Anyone read the stories lately about AMD kicking Intel's butt on CPUs? Well, guess what's happening to them now? They're looking at it and they're saying that, look, we're at a low point here now. And at that low point, we need to start to do things different because we're not selling as much now. The market had shifted. But the problem is they don't know how to move as fast on the finance side still in order to be able to take advantage of new things. I'll skip acceptation, but I'll throw one more business model in here and we'll start the discussion because you notice there's paper in front of you because I'm going to have you guys do some stuff. Everyone's going, darn it, he's going to make me work, it's after lunch. It won't be that bad, trust me on that. But in the US, we used to have a video rental chain called Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video, and you probably had it here, right? Did you have Blockbuster as a brand? And video, you go rent a videotape?
You have to look at adaptations to it. So it was called Big Flakes and one more.
Where you got your videotapes from. In the US, the Blockbuster Video actually made most of their money, believe it or not on the rental, but on something called the rewind fee. If you didn't rewind, and I'm sorry for millennials who are in the room who don't remember what a VHS tape is, it was a thing that mommy and daddy used to go off and plug into a machine called a VCR, and we actually had to get this. We had to rewind it. We had to push a button called rewind.
We used to have Rewinders, that would be.
And we would have we would buy extra products of rewinders, exactly. We were there then. But if you didn't rewind it, they would actually charge you a fee, and they actually made most of their money based upon that. There was another company called Netflix, who also was doing the same thing. In the background, Netflix was actually creating a new business model in the background. Streaming service, streaming video. Because they looked at their problem and said, hey, video streaming, if we do that, then no one would have to go to these stores, and we could actually probably make more money because it'll reach more audience. People at Blockbuster knew what Netflix were doing, but they ignored it. And it wasn't until Netflix had launched their full platform that they realized that they needed to actually change and actually go off and create their own streaming service. By this point, though, sales had declined so drastically that they were cash poor, and they couldn't actually make the investments to be able to pivot effectively. So at the time where they were making lots of money, they could have done it, but unfortunately they missed the market window and opportunity in that space. And that becomes part of the challenge and the scary part of it. Not as scary as that, that's scarier, right? Would you go in for a hug there? No, but still scary nonetheless. So I started, and this started back at Intel, thinking about what business agility was. And I bet I can ask every one of you, and you're all going to have a different definition. Even different than the one I have up here. But the way that I see it is that it has nothing to do with just the technology portion of our business. It has everything to do with how the entire business can work together in order to take advantage of an opportunity. And those opportunities, how quickly can I shift an organization to develop something new once I learn that? And so my definition is, and I'll read it verbatim here, business agility is the organizational-wide heuristic. Anyone not know what a heuristic is? What's that? I'm sorry? Let me go ahead and give the definition just in case. A heuristic is known as a rule of thumb. A rule of thumb, meaning there's a light switch that's on in the back of this room. You use a heuristic to determine how to go turn on or off a light. You have a built-in mental model that the way that you do it is that you press the button. And that's a heuristic that you use on all light switches, even though the light switches look different. So a heuristic is now, by the way, heuristics they're not absolute outcomes, meaning it could work differently. It only leads you closer to success or will give you success directly. But it's something that's applied through it. Organizational wide, as I said, agile mindset. What is the agile mindset? If I had to quiz you now.
To be open and flexible, responsive to
Open,
change.
flexible, open to change. Adaptability. Where are these words coming from? Coming from a certain document. The manifesto. And in particularly the principles behind Agile itself. There are how many principles? 12. Of those principles, please recite them. Start with number 1. No, I won't do that to you. That's rude. Because it's hard to remember 12 principles together. But as an example, I'll pick on number 4, which is business and developers work together daily. Right? That is a something that, would you think that my definition works better when business and developers are talking together daily? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So those values and those principles actually come into helping us to detect and react and move quickly on opportunities or problems. We had a problem inside of Intel which I framed as something called admiring the problem. Now admiring sounds nice, doesn't it? I'm going to admire this, nice plant right here. This is a beautiful plant. I'm going to admire it. We would do the same thing with our problems. Example, you guys don't have defects, right? At all? 0 defects? God, I wish a defect would come in. Well, we had lots of defects. I mean, we actually had meetings to talk about defects. Bug scrubs. Anyone do bug scrubs? Do you like those? Oh, bug scrubs are great. You know what we do in bug scrubs? We would take a defect out and we'd go, okay, there's our defect. There it is, right there. That's great. Let's talk about the defect. Really good. Let's set it right there. Put it back on the list. And let's talk about this defect. And we would have a room of 20 people that could have fixed that defect in the time that we just talked about that defect, but we had to go admire it for a little bit. And instead of fixing it, throw it back on the stack, only to come in next week and talk about it again. You guys do this? That's admiring the problem. That is a form of, that is the opposite of business agility, because you're not reacting to those problems and improving it specifically to grow and maintain stakeholder value. And now I picked the word stakeholder purposefully. Who are stakeholders?
Everyone.
Everyone that's involved in the product. Everyone minus employees? If you don't nod yes. It's including employees. So therefore, if I'm not taking care of all of my stakeholders, that also diminishes business agility as well. And so that was my framing for all of this to bring it through. Back to the Intel example for a little bit. Chipzilla, we didn't move very fast. We didn't move fast at all. And by the way, I want to just I got to say this about people at Agile conferences. This is typically most people when they come and talk about their Agile adoptions, they tend to come in with the bold and the kind of the, yes, I'm going to talk about how great we were and all of that. I am going to do my best to actually frame this in real life terms. So, I mean, it wasn't as grand as it sounds, is my point. So, the way that we were dealing, at least as an organization, is we had structural complexity, which means that if this was actually a map of the number of teams that it took to ship a platform. 28 components, teams that were worldwide. You know, I would have loved to have had all my team in one place. It wasn't possible. So we also had this social complexity. Social complexity to the point of, and I'll give you another example in this space of complexity, is that we had our architecture team over in Israel, and all of their documents were in Hebrew, and then they would transfer their documents to English so everyone else could understand what was in there. They would send it to the test team that was in Russia, and then the Russian team, well, by the way, they didn't translate all of it. They only translated what they thought the other teams needed. And the Russian team would then take it down into Russian. What could go wrong with that, right? Taking it between 3 languages. But that was the complexity we were dealing with. I helped to start the India site here. And I can remember the complexities of just how do we do business in India? The social complexities and other things that we had to go off and learn. The strategic complexity. This is a raccoon, which is an animal in the United States who's got himself caught between 2 trees. The reason why I felt this was a good picture is because one CPU didn't just serve one OEM. Another OEM wanted different features. And so we were being pulled strategic different ways. And then the last one, which is just the engineering complexity. And as you know, engineering complexity, as you work within your life today, we used to be here as companies. We used to have we would push the complexity to our end users. But There's been a trend, especially who's in mobile apps today. Mobile apps, unfortunately, we cannot do that. We can't have, I used to go and take a class for PowerPoint, a class for Excel. An Excel class is a university level class that people would take. You can't expect somebody to go take a class for mobile applications. These are things that we've moved the complexity back over here. And this problem does break down and causes us to try to, if we were to go and try to do this more effectively, we're dealing with the headwinds of legacy code that's bigger than all of us, right? Anyone not have a legacy code problem? I want to talk to you afterwards because I want to know how you did it. But everyone has it. Now, how does the customer see us? Black box. That's it. Do they care about that you're doing Scrum? Or you have a Kanban board? Are you doing pairing or mob programming? Or maybe how you do your finance system and all those deliveries? I'm sorry. It's sort of like back in the 1980s. If I went to a party as an engineer and I would start to talk about VHDL code or C code, most people at the party would ignore you, right? You know, we had to create our own parties to get people together, but otherwise they don't care. It's boring. So production-based systems itself, especially on the larger, and I won't read this list, but this problem of months to years, for us, and this is how it kind of came down to the rub of when we started talking about the problem, we were discovering that we were not talking the same language. We were talking velocity and talking sprint deliveries, and we were talking about iterations, and they were talking about strategic long-range planning, and they were talking about other different things that we were never a part of. So we had a definition issue that we had to go address. The other thing associated to that is that every tool that we had in the business side looked like a hammer. If you had to open up our toolbox, we literally were doing things that we had started in the 1970s. And you know what happens when all you have is a hammer? You've heard this before, right?
Everything looks like a nail.
Everything looks like a nail. And so when you're faced with a different problem, everything you're just pounding on it. We needed new tools. And so our Agile adoption grew from our technology side, and then we started the Agile adoption in leadership and management. And day one, we needed to understand some terms. This is something called the three-circle model. It was developed by Intel, but it is now public domain. And that is that if you look at the technology side, implementation, manufacturability, functionality, consumability, would you say that that's 90% of your guys' job today? I think we had one finance person back there, right? Was there a finance person who raised their hand? The other side of this is the economic circle. Marketability, profitability, affordability. You, my new CEOs. That's what you're in charge of, right? You're in charge of the economic circle associated to that. The bottom circle is desirability, usability, usefulness. It's the conceptual models behind a product. You know, when you come up with the greatest feature and you think, oh, customers are going to love this, and you give it to the customer and they go, And you're thinking, I just spent all that time and I get it. You know, those conceptual models, most of these, what we think is marketable and affordable, sometimes if you think about that whole concept there, and this is the conversation that we had internally, that the reason why value in this Pareto is between usage and the business, and not between the technology and the usage or the user, is because what value actually is a contract that you make with your stakeholders. if you buy my product, it will change your life. Everything will get so much better, you'll grow a full head of hair. You know, they extend a promise, and then somebody buys said product. Not that I have any personal experience with this, but then you use the product, and you look in the mirror every day. Not that I have any personal experience with this. I went bald when I was like 22, which is sad, but that's a different story. But that whole thing is that no, it didn't meet my expectation. And so therefore, what do? You want a refund, right? Or even worse, in today's world, what do?
Write a bad review.
You write a bad review. I have 5,000 Twitter followers. And guess what happens when I write a review? They actually come and contact me, which is kind of funny as anything. United Airlines, the expectation not met. Ray goes, worst experience of the world on United, bing, tweet. Second later, at United. Mr. Arell, how can we help? And by the way, can you delete the tweet? You know, because they understand that instant issue of diminishing value will affect their brand. So when we came up with this model, we determined that the fact is that most of these conversations between business and technology, what's most of the conversations that happen there? If you had to name a method. Name a method.
Prioritization.
What's that?
Prioritization.
Prioritization, but where do I do prioritization at?
Budget.
Budget could be budget discussion, yeah.
Timelines. Planning.
Planning, infrastructure, risk reduction,
Portfolio level.
portfolio levels, maybe portfolio, maybe a little bit mixed in there.
What the customer wants.
Yeah. DevOps could be in there, right? There's a whole number of different things. You notice that at this conference, if I had to guess, how many of the discussions are talking about things probably over here, a little bit over here. Are we talking about any methods over here? Right. You have a piece of paper in front of you. What I'd like you to do as a team is I'd like you to draw out the 3-circle model. Business, technology, and usage. I know, and don't you leave and say you have to go back to work or something. So we're gonna work through this together. We can do it. We're not gonna spend that much time. What I'd like you to do on the bigger piece of paper is draw the 3 circles, name them as business, technology, and usage, and then, you know, we're Agilists, we've got Post-it notes. Doesn't this make you feel comfortable as an Agilist when you have Post-it notes near you? What I'd like you to do with the Post-it notes is, each of you can populate this model by saying, oh, Scrum. And I'd like you to place Scrum on the model someplace. Or as we talk DevOps, DevOps is sort of like right in there. Or maybe I have a UX team that does design thinking, and I go put it there. And maybe I have a really cool method about doing agile beyond budgeting. Might be over there. Things that you have in your companies today, I want each at the table to spend not more than, what do we agree upon as far as the time? How many minutes do we want to spend? 1 minute. Who said that over there? We can't even get this negotiation done. Let's spend no more than about 5 to 7-ish minutes just populating with write a method down, throw it to where you think it is. Make sure you draw those circles big so you have enough room to go put them in. Any questions on the instructions that I've given? I'll keep the one there. But anyway, let's go. We'll do 5 minutes. Go.
At least put Scrum. You know those.
You tired? It's okay, man. It's cool. I get it. No questions about Scott? Good. Okay.
So stuff like backlog grouping.
Design.
That should be business
Okay.
or common. Prioritization.
I'm gonna keep myself out of
Estimation.
Right, so we got everything.
कोई मेथड नहीं है
Usage would be feedback loops between users.
Usage and technology.
Would be here.
Users define what requirements are technology.
Yeah, those are the factors.
Happen between
Technology and all
what is the difference on backlog? UIDs or
It's okay if you can't read the writing.
No. See what you put in certain things.
yeah, it happens in business also.
Actually, it should be a part.
That's true, but that way everything is flexible. But yeah, but I think what we're talking about is that it's more the so yeah, KPIs. No, between the business
Or any of you.
So, just what is this? Do you want to say something like story?
You could. I just wanted to know whether or not you were doing it.
So, I would then say utility story. So story mapping, story mapping is
clients technology वाले भी करते हैं for making it right.
About 1 minute.
Because the budget and everything will define what infrastructure we have.
There are also things that also drive the discussion happening on usage and business.
software retrospectives. Business
Good idea.
Here.
10 seconds. Did that scare you guys? Scared me. Stop. Okay. You guys know this about Agile, right? When we raise our hand like this, I never do this when a facilitator does this, which is funny because I think it's too much control. But I'm just going to see if I stand here long enough, if you guys start putting your hand up, just because it's fun. There you go. So let's bring attention back to the front. If anyone would like to be you guys are all CEOs because you're all risk takers, right? So any of the risk takers want to point out the agile method that you put into the business bubble. That's an agile method.
We have value stream mapping.
Value stream mapping. The lean people would be so mad at you right now. So that's okay. So value stream mapping being and there's a big crossover between, and I agree, an understanding of what my value stream is a really good methodology in order to remove what in particular?
Delays, waste.
Delays and waste. What's most of the waste in when you do if you've done a lean analysis, what typically is the biggest waste? Wait times, exactly. And that's why we put, we put all of our management over in the US and then we put all of our development over in India. Makes a lot of sense where that number came in through there. Okay, others who might have what they would consider to be a pure method in that space. What's that?
So we have yearly and then quarterly roadmaps.
Yearly and quarterly roadmaps. We're delivering iteratively and shipping either continuous value or we're shipping every 2 weeks or every 1 week, right? So how does that, do you think that still holds as an agile method? 1 second, you. One discussion at a time. We'll get there. Don't get me started on OKRs. We actually were the ones who started it at Intel back in the 1960s, so I apologize for that. So anyways, do you believe that it is an agile methodology based upon what we're delivering on the technology side? Is it in sync with the delivery of technology?
So what we used to, it's better from what we had earlier. We used to have 1 yearly plan with no long-term or short-term planning.
Okay.
So from that we moved to quarterly. Actually, we started creating quarterly OKRs.
Okay.
And they were, every OKR was then mapped to technology streams. And that's how we go about planning for 2-week sprints.
Okay.
So it's not a standard, we don't have agile method name, but that's a product that we use.
You
release
kind
planning.
of agilized it a little bit in order for it to be in sync with that. So I'll take that. Who's the OKR guy? OKRs! Yes. How is it, number one, how do you believe an OKR is an agile methodology?
So we are thinking about an objective, a goal.
Yep.
Towards a business, and to achieve that goal, we have certain key results and which are measurable.
Right.
So this way we can just promote our business as well, and we'll think of that.
Okay. When do you write? What's the cadence in which you write your key results? What's the cadence? Do you write them quarterly? Do you write them quarterly?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anything that you do in the technology area from your agile practice affect your OKRs?
Yeah. If in terms of
releases, in terms of bug fixing.
Okay. So I'm referring to, let's say, as an agile team, we meet daily, right? We collect what daily?
what we going to deliver today, what the value or what the goal we are going to achieve today.
Right, so we know status. We know status towards the OKR at that point. And we also collect what other component? Impediments. What's causing us from meeting that?
Anything stopping us, yes.
Well, I'm just trying to unfold my next tricky question, which is, does your OKR change on a daily basis based upon what you learned down by the team? As a matter of fact, if it's something blew up the OKR at that particular moment, would you change the OKR that day, or would you wait till the next quarter in order to say, nope, didn't do it, and yeah, we had to
You
change
can
it?
add the action point
Okay.
amend that thing, yes, if there is something, our objective will remain the same, but definitely we do have an additional action that we can improve on that impediment.
And specifically, if you look at OKRs, did you put it here?
Yeah.
Or did you put it here?
You have put it in a business.
Put it in business. So think about that for a second. Does it belong in business?
Because OKR will be for each team, business team as well as technology team as well. Both will be collaborating to the here.
You collaborate on OKRs between your business and your technology group. So if you think about it, the OKRs, yes, I agree with you. Some people practice OKRs and their key results as purely a top-down driven model that exists right there. Why are we having fun? But if you think about it, OKRs practice here, not so good. Practice here, very good. This model enabled us when we were starting our Agile transformation. Oh, by the way, did anyone want to share another method? I just want to make sure I caught everyone who wanted to do the risk taking.
Yeah, we also debated a bit and put in design thinking into business.
Design thinking into business. Why just into business?
Yeah, because you do a lot of empathy interviews, customer journey maps. You purely focus on business while staying with the problem long enough to come up with a number of options. So you first diverge and then later on converge towards a solution, but the entire focus is actually on business.
Why not there?
Yeah, I mean, could be there as well. That's the point we were still debating.
Or maybe here.
No, not there, because I would want business to be really at the center of it, right? That's the whole point of being customer-centric.
What we had was capabilities. This word was about what technologies do we provide to solve customer usage problems, the capabilities. So at least in our model, when we did this, design thinking actually ended up here. But one component of it was over here. And what the one component was, how much are you willing to pay for that nice new feature that we just talked about? Because as you know, 10 minutes, and then we're going to network, right? Okay, 10 minutes and we'll network, which will be fun. You guys have met at least 5 people, right? Okay, just want to make sure. Else you're not conferencing. It is conferencing. It's a verb. You want to be able to get off and do those things. But what we discovered was, by the way, is that if you look at this relationship here of cost, value, if you look at Don Reinertson's work, if you guys get a chance, he came up with a model of the things that affect value, and one of them is delivery time, when I actually get it, before it might not be useful to me anymore, because I need, in most cases, I need something like then, and if I don't have it by then I just probably went off and got a different solution. So being late could drive down value for customers. The other one was cost. Yes, you can have it now, but it's going to cost you. And it's going to cost you a lot. And then you go, oh, well, that's not valuable to me any longer. As you know, most customers will go, yeah, I want that, and I want it for free. And I want it now, which are all great expectations to have, but that's what we call negotiations. And that's where this happened in between here. What we found, again, clicking back to the model real quick, and I'll take away the pollution here, is that by defining the lexicon around, one, having a definition of what business agility was, and by going through and understanding that when we talk the word value, it meant this. And if we talk the word capability, it meant this. Likewise, what we talk about business, this meant this. Business agility for us also, we did the exact same mapping But we did these big 3 circles. We had our executive leaders, we had our technology leaders, we had our key people in the organization. We brought them together for a day. And they all did this thing that we did today at the table. And this area up here for us was relatively blank when it came to the definition of an agile, congruent method as an organization. So we knew that we were being slow because we weren't doing incremental releases of dollars. We were not being as fast as we could because HR was out of sync with some of their processes and their methods. Likewise, we also found a big blank spot here under usage. Yeah, we had design thinking, but the way design thinking was filtering into our business was actually having a hard time affecting our technology stuff because of that 5-year problem that I talked about in the very beginning. Well, you need something now that, to be honest with you, we didn't build the factory that could do that. So we started to also understand that how we built a factory is now modular. And if you actually go into an Intel fab facility today, they're literally, the way things plug into it is a very modular component system now. So we don't have to redo the whole bloody building again. We can do it in a different way. So just to finish, things that we started to do on the business side, UX proof points were a method that we brought in. Something called solutions lifecycle, safe to fail probes, the Kano model for measuring business value. We use the Knevin framework. And I'm just throwing these out so you know that these things came into existence because we saw the gap. We saw the gap in our methodologies itself. The last gap that was in there that everyone had to get in sync with is that the values that we were practicing were not consistent. We had a set of business groups following the 12 principles, but the business people weren't doing the 12 principles. They didn't embrace them. They didn't know what to do. So one of the last things that we did is we rewrote the Agile principles in the form of Intel principles. And we mapped those in. And what we found is that then suddenly, because you know what values are in a company, right? So when somebody tells you, like, and our values went all the way down into our reviews that we gave people. Oh, you're not being a great risk taker, or you're not being customer oriented, or you're not being X and Y. We were actually starting to see that Agile values were ending up in expectations of how we behave as leaders. Okay. Not just it's not just you guys over there are practicing Agile. No, we're all practicing Agile. You know? And that was the other thing that started to move us along that journey. Just as a closing note, everything has a sad story. There's always a sad ending to all great things. Then our CEO changed. And we had a slight, step back from all of the coolness that I'm describing here. So as you go and you find someone from Intel, you might find a few business groups that you go to who will go, oh yeah, what Ray said is right on. Yeah, that's what we do. And then you'll go to other business groups going, we're getting our asses kicked by AMD and we don't know what to do. What methods are you following? Waterfall. So some groups actually fell back to waterfall, which is interesting. That's the sad part of the story. So anyway, the way that supposedly this works, because they're going to throw up another sign in a second, we're entering the network phase, the networking and what's the other word that they put in there? And consulting phase of your time. You have a number of different options. I know that there's going to be several networking areas that are up. You guys could go off and visit them. You can also, if you want to have conversations with me, I'm here today, I'm here tomorrow. Most of my time will be at the Agile Alliance Lounge area over there, but I will be floating around. strike up a conversation with me. There are a couple of things that you guys can tune into, which is I have a podcast. It's called the ACN, Agile Coaching Network. I've met a number of people who've listened to the podcast, which is cool. Anyone listen to the podcast at all? Oh, I love you guys. Just, when your boss is, observing you and someone comes up to you and goes, oh, the Agile Coaching Network is so cool, it's really great. And my boss is sitting next to me and he's all going, gosh, you're popular. Yeah. Anyway, please tune in with that. I also have a number of other things there. You can reach me at ray.arell@agilealliance.org. That's a place where you can get, and then of course any of the other places that you can find me online are also available as well. One last task. Are you ready? You ready for the last task? Ooh, I know. Drum roll. I would like you to take one Post-it note, and I would like you to write a number between 0 and 10. 0 would represent, if you had to recommend this type of thing that I did with you guys here today, what would we call it? An unconference-y sort of talk thing. 0 represents, I will go out of my way to tell everyone to stay away from Ray and anything that he presents whatsoever, and I will do my best to just totally, anyway. I will get on Twitter right now, well, worst class I ever took in my life, darn it. A 10 means that's not the all holy number. It just means that you would promote, this to your friends and other things. So, and any number in between works as well. And if you'd like, on the back side of the card, which I do read the comments. If you say that, Ray, you looked a little bit tired, or whatever it might be, or didn't get some of your jokes, you're welcome to go throw those on there as well. And then once you get it done, you don't have to hand it to me where it shows the number. You can just leave it on the desk and I'll collect it. And with that, thank you guys.
Thank you.